Hi, y'all, and welcome to the Association of Latino Professionals for America's live virtual event. I'm Mary Mack, and I lead the Consumer and Small Business Organization for Wells Fargo. And we across the company are really proud of the partnership that we have with Alpha that goes back over 10 years. We support your mission to empower and develop Latino men and women of character in every sector of the global economy. With more than 100,000 professional and collegiate members, Alpha is truly making a difference in the lives and careers of so many. And we celebrate your 50th anniversary with you. It's a huge milestone. And it's a testament to the work you do and the commitment you have to Hispanic talent in America. We know that you all will have this and so much more to celebrate at your upcoming conference in Orlando, Florida. And I hope every single one of you are able to attend in person. As a precursor to the upcoming conference, this live event is going to focus on Wells Fargo's commitment to acquiring, developing, and retaining Latino talent and the importance it has in driving Wells Fargo's success. You'll hear from a couple of my colleagues, Patty Juarez, who heads diverse segments and a member of Alpha's 50 Most Powerful Latinos last year, and Cesar Gonzalez, who's head of commercial banking operations. They'll speak to the role that sponsorship, advocacy, and mentorship of Latino talent is playing in driving meaningful change at Wells Fargo, as well as how we're leading efforts to positively impact the communities in which we live and serve. So enjoy today's event, and thank you all for being with us.
Welcome, everyone, to the Alpha Live. We are here with Cesar Gonzalez and Patty Juarez. No relation, but probably, right, Patty? Who knows? Juarez is primos,
sure.
Yeah. And you know what? I have cousins that are Gonzalez too, so who knows? But thank you all for joining us today. We are going to be talking with Patty and Cesar about advancing Latinos in the financial services industry and kind of discuss some of the mindset and behaviors, expectations that are going to be needed in Latino leaders. And they're going to share their experiences and provide some insight into that. So thank you both for joining us. Welcome to the Alpha Live. And for folks that maybe quickly weren't able to read the intros there, Cesar is the director of commercial operations, and Patty commercial banking for the diverse segments. And myself, I am the Midwest regional director for the Alpha chapters. So thank you all for joining us, and let's get going. I want to start with you, Patty. I have a question for you that actually, before I even ask the question, I want to let everyone know that if you do have questions, please go ahead and submit your questions. We'll try to get to them, but we want to hit some of the questions that we have in mind already. But please feel free to submit your questions. We would love to get some interaction and engagement from those in attendance. So first question, Patty, you started off in talent hiring, and you were able to build your career at Wells Fargo. Now, as the highest ranking Latino at Wells Fargo, what do you see as your responsibility in advancing Latinos and impacting careers and communities?
Thank you, Cisco. Well, it is a responsibility that I take very seriously. I think, when I started with the bank 27 years ago, the playing field was maybe a little bit different. I think for me, I started out in a training program, and the path was a little bit predetermined, in terms of a training program and kind of the outcomes from that. But I felt back then there weren't many Latinos, right? And I think that especially in my field, in commercial banking, I didn't see a lot of Latinos across the footprint. And when I actually started working in credit, I think I was the only Latina in that position and one of the few women in that role. And so depending on the job, and I've been wearing many hats in the last 27 years. It wasn't always uh, a very level playing field, right? But I took it in stride and I just tried my best. And I always showed up with, a good attitude and ready to work hard and show people what I could do. And I think that my responsibility today is really more about leaving the the playing field more even than how I found it, paying it forward, and mentoring and coaching other Latinos within our organization to succeed. And I take that job very, very seriously. I also, as the president of Hispanic and Latino Connection, I have a huge responsibility to advocate, for the better representation of Latinos in our company. And that's something I love doing. And I feel that if you're in, meetings with other leaders, that you should never forget where you came from, and you should always advocate and be willing to, put your hand out and help that next person come up. It's not a huge secret, at the top levels and echelons of the company, Hispanics are not as well represented. Even though we are the largest minority group at the company at over 17%, we don't hold a lot of the very top level seats. My colleague and I, Cesar, get to share, get to be in those seats. And I think we always try to utilize our influence and our seats to make a difference and to advocate for others.
Cisco, you're on mute.
Yeah, there you go. I heard some static and I thought, oh, maybe I'll just mute myself. But anyway, no, I think that's great, Patty. I know in the beginning we were before we got on the call, you had said something also about just being flexible and being agile to adapt. And so I think those are great things that you're pointing out. Cesar, I want to go to you now, and I want to ask you about, you have a non-traditional educational background for someone that's in the financial services. For folks that don't know, Cesar has various degrees in mechanical engineering. And so, how many times do you see someone in commercial banking that has that sort of a background? You did it. How did you end up in financial services? Can you share some of that career journey that has led you to this? That's obviously very different from Patty being a new talent hire from the beginning. Can you please share with us?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, you'd be surprised how many engineers are in banking. A peer of mine, he leads, Naran Latif, he leads our wealth and investment management operations group. He's also an engineer. And so it's interesting, I find, I love engineering. That's why I studied it. And as you said, I loved it so much, I studied it more than just my bachelor's and kept going. But, the nice thing, for me, because I've even met, I remember in a prior role, the head of our global markets technology team, she got a liberal arts degree. Yeah, she led the technology organization. So you can imagine, right, as like the flexibility that we all have, right? No matter what you study, what your bachelor was, your career is going to take you, many ways. I have a couple of daughters in university today, and I tell them, it's like, throughout the years, your career is going to take turns that you probably don't think about right now and don't even visualize right now. And I can tell you, when I was in University of Puerto Rico studying mechanical engineering, doing my bachelor's there, I never thought I was going to be in financial services. And it was interesting. It was a few years into my career as an engineer. By then, I was actually already had an MBA, and I was running a business unit within the company I was with. And I had a friend of mine who was an examiner for one of the banks. and he was telling me, he said, "Wow, if you can take your skills and go to banking, you will do great." He was like, "What you've learned in manufacturing and the speed in which you move and the different challenges that you face will transfer over tremendously into financial services." And so I took a shot. I went ahead and applied for a role. And the funny thing is, like, other than it being the product, right, of financial services, everything else I could check every box, because I had all the right experience, just done in a different industry. And I was given the opportunity to go ahead and do that. And really, from that point on in my career, has been just that, taking the step. First of all, the network, right, to get to know the people in those areas that may be of interest to me, and then taking that step and taking the risk, right, to go ahead and learn new things, go into areas that I never worked on before, and learn and adapt, and go ahead and be successful, right, and deliver the results, and continue to move my career.
That's amazing. I always find it interesting to hear backgrounds and whether or not you went into that particular profession after going to school. And so I hope that the audience can see there's a range of possibilities, right? Like you can be the new hire right out of school and you're going to be a career person, or you can change careers, change professions. And so I think that's possibly maybe one of the things that holds Latinos back, right? Is that, well, we follow the rule, we follow this, and we should probably stay here, especially for, the first generation folks that, this is their first time going into school and then graduating, and, well, I have to follow this track. Well, guess what? No, we have two people right here that are at the top who have varying experiences and a very, very, very trajectory to getting to where you guys are at. So I think that's amazing. And I think that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of folks that are probably listening in on this who are contemplating maybe making a shift out of whatever it is that they're doing and possibly going into the financial services. So thank you both for sharing that.
Cisco, if I may add, one of the things that, I enjoy of a company like Wells Fargo is that you can come into operations, for example, that I lead, but then it doesn't mean that your career is just in operations, right? You can then move into middle market banking or parts of commercial banking to be a relationship manager, right? And work more on the revenue generation side. You can move into risk, right? Move into second line risk, whether it's compliance or risk. So your career, no matter where you start within the company, it doesn't mean that's where you're going to end, right? Your career can just go in so many different directions. And that's what I find when I talk to people, and even my own belief right before I joined financial services. My own belief before was, financial services, you have to be a banker, right? And it's finance. It's like, no, it's so much more than that, right? It's like you can have a tremendous career within Wells Fargo, and every job could be totally different.
Yeah.
And you could feel that you're starting a new, different job every move you make, and yet have your career in one company.
Yeah, no, thanks for the follow.
I'm living proof of that. Living proof.
Yeah,
Credit, relationship management, strategy. So for sure. And I think that's what keeps it interesting, frankly, because I don't think I would have stayed 27 years if it had been, one boring thing to do. It's been really nice to pivot at times. And, you don't always have to a straight line up, right? Like sometimes you got to take sideways steps to widen, your horizons and expand your experience.
So I'm glad we're kind of going in this direction, because the next question, Patty, I wanted to ask you, you were able to build a career from start to now, right? From your beginning internship, possibly to an executive role now. What are some of the tips that you can share to kind of, touch on these points that we're talking about here of like, you don't necessarily have to fit into a box or into a mold. What are some of the tips that you can share with the group on progressing and even starting a career with Wells Fargo?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to align your job with your strengths in terms of your background and your skill set, but then also your passion, right? I always tell people make sure you're doing things you love, because you're going to be that much more successful. And so for me, I'd say, starting as an analyst at the bank, it was really, graduated right out of UC Berkeley and joined Wells Fargo. And at the beginning, when you're in part of a training program, my goal was to really do the best job that I could do, and to try to learn as much as I could learn through my years in the training program. Once I graduated the training program and started to manage, customer relationships, my goal was to take the best care of my customers, right, that I could. And so I think that after that, when I went into credit, my goal there was to, find a way, not just say no. Is there a way? Like, if we structure the credit differently, or we put a nuance into it, is there a path, right? And show people a path, rather than, no, I'm not going to apply, I'm not going to approve your loan, or yes, I'm going to approve your loan. It's like, get creative. And so that was always, for me, it was like, in each role that I had, it was like, how do I apply my skill set? How do I do a good job? There's no substitute for that, right? You have to work hard. You have to do a good job. But, then how do I take care of my customer? And I think the one thing, and having been here for 27 years, that I can tell you about our culture is that people here really are very customer centric. We're very customer centric. We want to take care of our clients. And so that is what allowed me to really focus on, these diverse communities, which is the work that I'm doing now as head of diverse segments. It's like, how do we take care of business owners that are minorities, and women-owned, women-led businesses? How do we best take care of them? And how come there's so many of them? Like, there was such a big growth in entrepreneurship amongst minorities and women in general. And so I think, for me, it was aligning my skill set, like what I knew how to do well, but also my passion, right? And I think for me, it's always been about, how do you take care of somebody? How do you help them achieve their financial goals, right? It's super important, because access to capital is still the number one issue for business owners, especially when they come from, minority communities, or when they're female owned. And so for me, it's always been aligning my strengths and my, my analytical skill set, and my passion. And so this job that I created, 5 years ago, really blends both of them very nicely, in that I get to take care of my clients, I get to take care of customers, but I also get to put in a lot of work in terms of advocacy, right, for our minority communities, our Latino community, particularly in terms of access to capital, and finding ways and working through with our partners in credit and other ways to really take care of clients. And so that I think for me, that's been kind of the secret sauce, if you would call it, in terms of really enjoying what I do here at Wells Fargo. And after 27 years, I could tell you that I really have enjoyed it for all this time, and will continue to enjoy it, because I think there's a lot of growth in this particular area.
Patty, just listening to you talk about that, it makes me feel like you're a teacher. And in our conversation before we went live, I had asked the group a question. Well, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing ideally? Patty had mentioned being a teacher in some form. And I think you're being a teacher to your clients. You're being a teacher to your peers, to your colleagues. You're educating them, right? You're educating on what the possibilities are. And then even right now, you're educating those in attendance that, don't put yourself in a box and limit yourself. You have to explore, you have to ask. So I think, that's probably one of the underlying secrets to success for you over the past 20 years, is that you've taken on that role of a teacher and educating your clients and listening to them so that they can achieve their goals and make sure that you're in alignment. So I think that's great. Amazing, amazing. You had mentioned something earlier too about like the low percentage of representation of Latinos in an organization, financial services. And so the next question I kind of want to keep on going with that, but I want to flip it over to Cesar now. Based on the census data, it looks like in 8 years from now, 2030, Latinos will be about 21% of the U.S. labor force. Why is it important to have transparent conversations about career paths and advancing Latino talent and look at this talent differently?
Yeah, I would say, well, first of all, right, it is important for every company to have adequate representation within their companies that mirror the communities in which we live, right? We are in the business of supporting our clients. If we ourselves do not represent what our clients look like, we will not be able to meet their needs because we won't even understand their needs. So that's the criticality. I would say first for those of you that are in this call that are already professionals, are in companies, all that. The reason we all talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and having the right representation at all levels of the company is because we really need to represent our client base. And to be successful and to truly deliver a world-class client experience, right, and what we do, we have to make sure that all through our organizations, we mirror the communities in which we live in and the communities that we serve. So that's why first, Cisco, the important thing, or okay, why do we do this, right? Why is it important? As Hispanic Latino population continues to grow, definitely then it means that we need to see better Hispanic Latino representation across all levels of management, across all companies, not just financial industries. For us in Wells Fargo, we get that, and it's important for us to make sure whether it is in commercial banking and the work that Patty's doing and team are doing, not just the work that she does within overall commercial banking, but that item of diverse segments, right? How do we make sure that our teams, what we do, our products, are supporting our client base that is diverse already, and then in areas like mine and operations and technology, right, to make sure that we're fully representative of the clients that we serve. How do we do that, right? How do we go ahead and ensure that we're able to grow through their ranks, and more particular Hispanic Latino? First is events like this, right? Working jointly with Alpha and making development opportunities available to our Hispanic Latino population. The other thing is the role that each of us play as advocates, sponsors, mentors, and be able to open doors for others, really to pay it forward based on those who open the doors for us. I was recently in the Northeast region. They were having a forum. They asked me to join them. I joined virtually. But Ben Garcia and team, Luis Rosado, and I left them with an action. I said, guys, for you now, the action is what are you going to do to become active in your community, to become active in Alpha, to become active in your companies, to help grow Hispanic Latino talent, right? And to help open the doors for them, to help mentor them, to help guide them along the way, and then challenge the status quo, right? Be able to educate our peers, right? In terms of here's the talent you're missing out, here's a perspective you're missing out, because you're not appropriately, you don't have adequate representation within your organization. Here's the aspect of the business that you could grow, but yet you're missing out on because you don't have enough Hispanic Latino bankers, or you don't have enough African American bankers, and therefore you're missing out in this opportunity to grow the business. So those are things where we can tie, right, doing the right thing with the results of the business, with how we interact in our communities to make that happen. I think for us here, Patty talked about Hispanic Latino connection with an employee resource network here at Wells Fargo for Hispanic Latino. There's a mentorship program that got recently rolled out. You'll be surprised, pretty much every Hispanic leader signed up to be a mentor. To go ahead and really help our up and coming talent to move forward. The other thing is, we have the convention coming up, right? And the key there, you're going to see people like Patty, myself, our recruiting teams. I'm going to have several of my managers there. to actively go and recruit talent, and be able to bring them in, because we have to go where the talent is, right? Whether that is Hispanic serving institutions or going to events like the Alpha Convention, to the regional events, and be able to get to know the talent, be able to show what careers everyone can have here, and really help kind of open the door and get them in. And then once they're in, is retention and development, right? Is the key, because we all want to continue growing our careers. You mentioned, being at the top. I don't consider myself being at the top. I don't consider that I'm done. So it's like, to me, I still have career growth to do, and that's, I look forward to that too. I know everyone else does the same.
I'll add a comment to Cesar, which is the intentionality of really attracting more Latino talent to our company. It's really crucial. I mean, about 20% since 2019, about 20% of our new hires are Hispanic and Latinos. We estimate, there's a lot of information that you can look up, but in the last 10 years, 60% of our labor force gains have come from Latinos. And so if you're a company that has a workforce of over 200,000 employees like we do, and you know that you're going to have to replace, right, a percentage of them every year. People retire, they decide to do different things. Where is your talent coming from? And we know that over 20%, at least 20%, if not more of that, as it's growing, like you said, with the demographic shift, is coming from Latinos. Latinos are attaining college degrees at a higher degree than anybody else. That educational attainment is leading to people seeking these, good paid jobs. And I think that when your bench looks this way, this is where it's coming from. You'd be not smart to turn a blind eye to that opportunity, because that's where the talent is going to be. In addition to that, you look at our customer base, right? Where, about a third of our consumer business comes from Latinos. I think 56% of new origination, new mortgages last year came from Latinos. I mean, when you're looking at your customers, right? And that, like Cesar said, you have to look like the makeup of the communities that you serve. That's looking also increasingly Hispanic. And that makes me incredibly, cheerful and proud. And it makes me really want to look forward to the future, because I think the future is really bright for our young Latinos.
Yeah, you guys make some great points, and it's so good to hear that a large organization like Wells Fargo is committed to that, and it's clear. I mean, just right now with talking with you guys and knowing that Cesar and Patty and their management team members are going to be at convention, where, for folks that don't know, but convention is a great time to network and meet with hiring managers of various organizations, and especially an organization like Wells Fargo that clearly is committed to including the Latinos into their organization. One of the comments that you guys were talking about is like knowing that your clients should, your employees should reflect the clients. I mean, it's a full circle type thing, right? It's one feeds off of the other, and then maybe that client then says, "Hey, we're gonna send our kids to school," right? And now we got another kid graduating and becoming more educated, and so the community starts to get stronger and more enriched. And so it's good to see that you all are on the Wells Fargo team, and you're really pushing for that. So,
and Cisco, if I may, because you touched on university, you and Patty did, and it's like I know Alpha has scholarships that get awarded. Hispanic Scholarship Fund is another organization that we work closely with in terms of opening doors, and the key, right, is the difference that degree makes, especially for that first generation going to university, right? And how they can help the whole family. And, it's like, I have a gentleman that I mentor. He just graduated high school, and it was funny. The first time we met, he didn't think he was going to go to university. he thought, his two older brothers had graduated high school, gone straight to work. He thought that was what was in store for him. And as he's going now to Appalachian State University. He's got earned a scholarship, and really proud of him. But it's nice to see, as he got to learn what it could be, right, and what his life and his family's life could be by him attaining a degree. It was great to see his change in mindset and all that. Now, what that means, right, this is someone that's first in the family going to university, right? So we need to have the right support structure for him. And then when he goes to work, Wells Fargo or any other companies represented here, right? It's like we need to have the right support structure for someone like him, who is the first one in their family going to work for a large corporation. And those are things that I've seen, Wells Fargo has in place through the development program that Patty came through. I saw Fernando Rocha talked about coming in as a financial analyst development program. And then those programs help kind of that individual because, coming in, and you got to remember, right? All of us, when we started work, right, is like, it was not easy transition, especially if you were coming from a family, or my own family. My dad had a construction business, right? It was like small business owner. He didn't have a degree. My mom didn't have a degree, right? It was like, it was first into corporate America. And if it wasn't for the people who were there to support me, it would have been a very difficult transition.
Absolutely. And I love that you're mentioning, the support, not only from the family, but from the employer. And clearly Wells Fargo, what you talked about earlier about the Latin network at Wells Fargo, that mentorship, everyone signed up to be a mentor. Like that's very important, right? Especially as the new hires, as Patty mentioned, there's more new hires, and those new hires are increasingly becoming Hispanic. They need to see those mentors, and they need to have that guidance because, a lot of us didn't get that guidance from our parents, or we didn't have siblings that shared that with us. So it's very, very important to have that. And so, Patty, I wanted to ask you, given that you've been there for 27 years, what has changed for Latinos in the workplace since you've started?
I think a lot has, in that there's definitely more of us around. I think that, financial services, we've been trying to demystify what it means to be in financial services, to really have people of many different backgrounds, as I've said at the beginning of the call, liberal arts and other backgrounds, approach a career in financial services. And so I think that there's more accessibility, but in a way, a lot still hasn't changed, right? It's still a very male-dominated industry. It's still a very, it's an industry where we struggle with diverse representation from a Latino standpoint, especially at those upper echelons of the company. And I think that it's incumbent upon us as leaders to really advocate for that. And so I spent a lot of time in my role of president of the employee resource group. I spend a lot of time, what I call it is elevating the Latino agenda, really talking to Charlie, our CEO, and Clever about who's my boss, about representation, and how do we make sure we have bench strength and we prepare to the retention issue, right? Like, how do we retain and really pave upward mobility for others that are coming strongly behind us? How do we do that better? And I think we're probably the only company that does this, but we literally have a group of about 40 of us, Cesar and I are part of it, of Latino senior leaders in the company that meet with our CEO every month. Every month we sit with Charlie and members of the operating committee, and we tell them what is it that's working, and better yet, what's not working. What are the things that we could do for those things that aren't working? How do we personally get involved? And one of the things we noticed is there was a lack of substantial mentorship and sponsorship of Latino employees, and that has to do with maybe we're not as as forthcoming or as aggressive in seeking those relationships, right? Sometimes we feel like things have to come to us. We're happy just sitting there waiting for it. And I got to tell you, no, you got to raise your hand and you got to start asking for things. And you got to say, I would love, you got to say to your manager, I'd love to have a mentor assigned to me. Or because we saw that gap in our employee resource group, we created a program where senior leaders could mentor. And our class is over 125 just to start employees that are going to have that relationship. And there's a strong interest for more. And I think that it's incumbent upon us to ensure that there is support for employees coming in that are, 10, 15-year employees with us that have a lot of dreams and goals and objectives to achieve here with us in our company, to ensure that those opportunities are available to them. And if you're in a room where people are discussing talent, right, because you now are a senior leader and you're in that room where it happens, to take it from Hamilton, you're in the room, and if you don't use your voice to advocate for other Latinos, then shame on you, right? You have to use your voice. You have to use your leadership position to make it better for others. And I think if you do that, and when you do that, I think people understand that, number one, you have their best interest at heart, right? That you want to do better by your community. And I think they listen, right? It's important. I always bring a very data driven approach to things, right? In that I say, hey, here's the percentage of people, here's the representation numbers, right? Like, we know this information. How do we now turn around and make it better? And I think that we have a really great team of leaders that have really demonstrated an interest in listening to us as a leadership group as to how we can even do better. And we have started a couple of programs that are aimed at really growing this talent, this high potential individuals that are diverse. And we really focus on developing them, on ensuring they have opportunities, on ensuring that if they do get that job, that there's somebody there to, like, not let them fall, right? Like, that's the worst thing you could do, is you put somebody up on a pedestal and, oh, like, here's Cesar, he's the highest ranked Latino, and he's, in commercial banking, he's going to be the head of operations. And then you don't give them what he needs, the resources that he needs, or the support that he needs. And, it's terrifying, frankly. I feel that weight on my shoulders. Like, oh yeah, you're the highest ranking Latino. Oh, I better not mess up. I better not mess this up and create a bad, trajectory for others. And so I think that it's very important for companies to not just bring in the talent, but retain the talent, support the talent, and ensure that they're ready. So when the opportunities do come up, that they're ready to take that leap. And if they do get the job, that you support them with the resources that they need to be successful.
That's great. I want to kind of continue this theme here, and I want to pass it on to Cesar. We're talking about, management and the organization, making sure that they have things set up for that talent, right? That new diverse talent, and so that they don't, come in and fail, right? Like, how do we set them up to succeed? And so what I wanted to ask you, Cesar, is, what is important? What is the importance of having strategic planning and conversations around career advancement for Latinos within an organization in order for that to happen?
Yeah, I think I think there's two parts to your question. One is in terms of the career path conversation, right? And the other one is, as you go through your career, what was the support structure that we give to people as they take risks, right? And we gotta remember, anytime that any of us take a new job, we're taking a risk, right? The person doing it, and then the organization we're going into, or that are giving us the opportunity, they're taking a risk too, right? It's like, they're counting on us bringing those skills and being successful in the role. And I think from a career standpoint, first, each of us own our career, and to me, it starts with knowing what you want to do, what you are willing to do, what you're not willing to do. So it doesn't mean you only have one role, but you say, okay, here's kind of the things that I will consider And again, my own career being a good example, right? I never committed to one thing. I had an open mind to what the opportunities were, and if they aligned with things that I wanted to do, regardless of the industry, it was something to definitely consider. And then having the right support structure within the company or within the organizations that we have, in terms of, okay, if this is a career that you see, right? These are the steps that you need to take to get there. This is education that you may need. This is experience that you're going to need. This is, the exposure you're going to need, right? And enabling that exposure. And you heard I use 3 E's, right? So education, experience, exposure. The interesting thing is education is only like 10% of that, right? It's like the key to success is really lies on the experience and the exposure. And that is where us as managers, we can help our teams in achieving that. And that, giving the right exposure. So I've only been here in Wells Fargo just under 10 months. But what one of the things I've done is, how do we go ahead and give individuals exposure, right? Whether it's exposure to my leadership team, exposure to my own leaders that I support, so that they can go ahead and develop in that exposure side, right? That's usually one of the hardest things for people to develop, right? To come out of their shell, really speak openly, speak their mind, kind of be concise, and go ahead and be able to share their thoughts with all levels, right? Whether you're talking to the CEO, right? The meetings that Patty said we have with Charlie, or you're talking to someone that you're helping explain to them how to do something, right? It's like you have to be able to change, and it takes practice, right? So we need to, part of that development is us providing those opportunities. And then the experience in terms of whether it's special projects or the experience on the job or the positions that the people do to help them get there. So I think the key here is, first we equip the managers to do it. As it relates to the specific Hispanic Latino, Patty talked about the mentorship program, as well as several sessions. A session like this one, believe it or not, we do that within Wells Fargo, right? So having this conversation, right, to help develop our Hispanic Latino talent are things that happen within the company naturally, right? It's like and it's just ways of providing people kind of what are the things you need to do. I'm currently, I'm in like a little focus group room, so that's why you see the light coming off from time to time. I'm not in my office. I'm in Denver, and yesterday I had a focus group session. And part of, some of the questions I got is like, hey, what roadblocks do you have to overcome, and how do you do it? What great, advice do you get, right? And those are the things that Patty, myself, and the other Hispanic Latino leaders do on an ongoing basis. And those of you who are leaders in your own companies, you should be doing this too, to go ahead and help develop our talent, right? To share our experience, and talk about the things, and talk about, hey, here's kind of somehow how we get around it. There's not one answer fits everything, but those are the things that we can do to help grow our talent. And finally, the other item, right, is then attracting talent, right? And since I joined, I've been lucky enough to get 3 other individuals that I worked with in the past to come join us, and just getting to know talent within the bank and outside, and be able to help attract talent while also developing the talent from within.
I think it's, you guys have been talking about this throughout the call, and having someone to open the door to those coming, right? And you guys are clearly doing that. Wells Fargo, apparently, it looks like a system is in place to encourage that with the mentorship program and with the resource group, which is great, because I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that wish they could get into the room, and they have no idea how to. And so it's great to see that you guys are both doing that at varying degrees, right? So that's wonderful. What I kind of want to now, I kind of want to take a little shift now and speak a little bit more about the leadership, and expectations. And either one of you, maybe Patty, we'll start with you. Are the expectations of a Latino, Latina, Latinx leader different? Are they self-imposed? What what's the differences? What are some of the things that you see that are maybe self-imposed differences versus just the common leadership roles, but specifically for Latinos?
Yeah. Well, I do think that, depending on your seniority, level of leadership, et cetera, there's a lot of expectations that come with, with great responsibility comes a lot of expectations. And I think that part of how or why you're successful is if you do meet or exceed those expectations. In many ways, we as Latinos often place additional expectations on our own shoulders because either you're an immigrant like me that wants to make my parents proud of the decision they made to bring us here, or you're just an overachiever, whatever it is. But we place our own our own expectations, sometimes even at a higher level than other expectations are placed upon us. And I think that the reason that happens in many cases is because we are always like trying to prove the point that we're good enough. And frankly, um, what I wish I had done earlier in my career, or what I tell younger people when I talk to them about, what they're doing, is that you have to start with believing in yourself, and you have to start with believing that you are good enough. And when you have that confidence, right, you're going to go into a room and you've done your homework and you do your work, you're going to impress the heck out of people. But I think that we have to start believing in ourselves, like we are good enough. In many cases, there's been a thousand 10,000 articles written about imposter bias, right? Like people walking in a room, they're part of the management team and they're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm like the only one. They look around, not a lot of people looking like them. And they're feeling like maybe I don't deserve this, right? Like maybe I don't belong here. And so one of the things I had to overcome was, really believing that I was good enough. And I think that I feel much better about it now because I've done a few things right, and I think my work has obviously delivered results. But I do feel like sometimes a lot of these expectations we place upon ourselves, and I think we need to free ourselves from that burden, that additional burden, because it's enough to have the burden of delivering with a high power job. And I think if we did that sooner, we would we would do better, and I think we would feel better, about our work.
Patty, I think you've done more than a few things well. So don't sell yourself short. I mean, I know, being humble and modest, which is also a very uh, Latin thing
Latina
about us,
quality, I
right?
know.
And so I want to definitely touch on some of those cultural aspects, but I want to make sure that Cesar comes in and he can provide us some of his insight into, what are some of the expectations of a Latino leader, and are they different? Are they self-imposed?
Yeah, no, I think Patty said it great. I mean, it's like one of the best advice I've ever received from one of my sponsors was that he said, you have everything you need to do the next job.
Hmm.
You just need to believe in yourself to go do the next job. And you need to go ask for it, right? He said, you keep waiting for someone to find you and give you that next job. He's like, no, no, no. You're already there. Don't, just go and ask for the job, right? Don't wait. And a lot of us through our careers, right, it's been, especially early on in your career, you perform, you get recognized, you move up, right? But as your career grows, that is going to be less and less, and it's going to have to be you stepping up and asking for it, and that's hard, right? To Patty's point, sometimes we think that we don't belong. Sometimes we wonder, hey, am I going to get caught, right? It's like, people don't think I'm a fake, right? It's like, and you have that fear, and therefore that holds you back from taking that next step because you don't think you're quite ready. You think you need to do another, if I do this other lateral move, then I'll be ready. If I learn this next thing, then I'll be ready. And it's like, and it was funny when he told me that, it was like yes, I can go. And it's like it really pushed me forward to take that next step. I came from Puerto Rico, right? It was when I first came, I worked at Bell Labs, and my English is not where it is today by any means. And so I was very, hesitant to speak up, right? I was, very, self-conscious, and but it took, I knew I had to do it, right? It's like if I'm going to move forward, I have to lose that fear and just do what I need to do to go ahead and really let my thoughts be heard. I knew I could contribute, and I had to kind of put those contributions forward, and that really helped me in terms of getting movement and networking more, and that leads to more open doors. But that final piece was feeling that I was ready, and not that thinking, okay, do I need something else, right? It was like just having enough confidence in myself.
And there's so many minorities and a lot of women who feel like, okay, the next job has these 47 things that you have to be, here's the job description, there's 47 things on it. Oh my God, I only have 42. I guess I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to apply. Like Cesar says, like if I do this one more thing and I tick that off, I'll have a much better chance. Well, let me tell you, half of the applicants that applied for the job had 30 things on them, from the list. And so just having that confidence to go for your dreams, to go for something that, hey, maybe you don't have all of this, every single little thing on the list, but you have a passion for it, and you have, you really, you're going to work hard to prove that they make the right choice. And I think a lot of us feel many times when we do get promoted, like somebody's taking a chance on us. It's sad, right? Because you feel like, here, I work just the same, just as hard as everybody else, but if I get that job, it's because they're taking a chance on me. So you have this added burden, like I said, self-imposed. But I think people really need to look at opportunities and not wait till like it comes knocking on the door, because that's definitely happening less and less. You really have to be proactive about managing your career trajectory.
Yeah, Patty, I really like that point you make about, oh, you took a chance on me. Both of you guys are discussing this. Have that confidence to move forward, to ask for the job, and I definitely have seen that where, I hear people, talking to their, manager, superior, whoever it is who took a chance on them, right? But yeah, maybe we need to have a change in mindset. This isn't you taking a chance on me. This is me showing you that I deserve to be here. And that whole imposter syndrome.
Yes.
We have 7 minutes left. I feel like we could keep on talking all day long about this stuff, but I do want to just remind folks that if you want to ask a question, please do. We could try to squeeze it in. But kind of like a follow-up to this is, with the different generations coming, do you guys see that there's a difference in how these newer, younger hires, 20 years ago versus 10 years ago versus last year? Like, is there a difference in those Latinos that are coming in over the different generations, of how their mindset is? And, how do we work on those cultural barriers that we have, right? One thing being humble and modest, one thing saying, oh no, thank you for taking the chance on a, do you guys see it? And either one of you can go for it.
Yeah, I think it's like, so. I'm a tad bit older than the new generation, but you look at. So I interact a lot with university students, right, coming into the career space, and there are differences. First of all, many of us, right, on this phone, Patty and I for sure are first generation, right, into the U.S. Now you see is you have some first generation, but you have some second, third generation, right? And therefore their mindset, their how ingrained they are here in the U.S. is totally different, right? And the sad part is sometimes some of them don't even want to consider themselves Hispanic Latino, which that part is sad to see. But the difference is in terms of how you come in. First of all, the challenges that I have from a language standpoint, many of them don't have for sure. But then how they view their careers and all that is different. And that doesn't mean Hispanic Latino versus any other ethnicity, right? definitely there's a generational difference that's happening in terms of the what people want to do, what kind of job excites them, as well as what they expect from companies in terms of what's going to be available for their career development, what's going to be available in terms of tools, right? These are individuals that their cell phone is their life, right? And here, you have they come into a company and they say, "Oh yeah, you have to sit on this desktop," and they're like, "What? What are you talking about?" Right? And it's like, that's ridiculous, right? Or they feel they're going backwards. So us as companies, right? It means that our jobs, our work, right, has to keep up with kind of what's happening with the generations, what's happening in the environment, and the workplace and what used to work before doesn't work anymore now. But we got to remember, right? I have from baby boomers all the way through millennials, Gen Z in my organization. So as a leader, right, I have to make sure that I'm able to support our baby boomers and our Gen Z that are just joining in, right, and are a year or two into their careers. So as a company, we have to do that. Me and my organization, I have to do that to make sure that we're able to deliver what our team members are looking for, both in their day-to-day job and in their careers. And that means driving transformation, driving improvements in technology, driving improvements in your processes, driving improvements in how you do things, right, from a human resource and development standpoint, to make sure we're addressing everyone's needs.
Particularly, I think in the Latino community, we have a very young cohort, right? We're 10, 12 years younger on average than Caucasians, and the population is youthful, and we have 65% of our members in our employee resource group are millennials or younger, and so we have to figure out ways to appeal to that demographic. And a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, it's like." They want to be promoted tomorrow and have a title the next day, and come in with a lot of expectations. And I look at it differently. I look at they come in with a great deal of passion. They come in with a great sense of social responsibility, right? That we probably didn't see in the past from people. They come in with a great deal of hunger, in terms of, yes, doing well, but everybody wants to do well, and I think you have to show them a path, right? A path for them to become successful in our company. Look, the war for talent is intense, right? People want to work from home all day long, or people want to have different career choices that they want to make. They want to be in technology, they want to be in other areas. If we're going to attract in banking services a robust amount of talent that's diverse and that's great talent, is we're going to have to be an attractive company to them, right? And I think some of the things we do here is we have a lot of support for our employees. So we through the pandemic, which was very alienating, right? Mental health, mental wellness was a lot of what was necessary to support employees through that. Now, in returning to office, some folks want to remain at home. What kind of flexibility are we showing our employees? All of those things are factors that are going to have a critical impact on whether you retain that employee or not. And you can't just go outside and pick another one from the apple tree. I mean, the war for talent is intense, and especially I think in diverse segments. I think we definitely have a very growing area of the market. And so I know folks in my team get calls all the time from recruiters and other banks that want to, pick them up. And so how do we make sure they're having a great experience here? Retention is not easy, right? You have to be very intentional as a manager and a leader to make sure you're communicating with your employee about what their needs are.
Well, Cesar, Patty, thank you so much for your insight and your knowledge, your transfer of knowledge that you're providing to the folks in attendance. Very important. We're almost at time, and we could keep on talking about this, and I always love hearing from folks like yourselves and knowing that there's people out here benefiting from this in some sort of way. You guys touched on so many great points that I wish we could keep on talking about it. Maybe we will at another time. But I wanted to
Well, in August, in Orlando,
in August,
exactly,
and we can do it in person too.
And I'm glad that exactly. That's kind of where I was gonna take this, is that, folks, if you haven't signed up for Alpha Convention, you should definitely look into it. I know we're gonna go ahead and put on something on the screen here for folks to get in contact with both of you, your LinkedIn information. So folks, if you guys want to reach out to Patty or Cesar, they're making themselves available, which is great. How many times do you see folks at this level making themselves available? So we really appreciate both of you guys for joining us today. We appreciate the folks that have joined us via the various channels to tune in today. And thank you all for joining us. I hope that this was helpful and beneficial. And please do look up Patty and Cesar. Join us at convention in August. There's some QR codes here that you could take a look at for some activities that are going on at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo has been around for a long time, and I think they wouldn't be if they didn't adapt and evolve to what Cesar was mentioning earlier, the importance of that, making sure that we're staying relevant. So thank you to Patty, Cesar. Thank you to Ruth, who's in the background helping. And thank you to Chris as well, and Felicia. Hope to see you guys soon and in person at convention. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Gracias, Cisco.
Gracias.